Family, there comes a moment in your walk with God where he isn't just asking you to pray more, worship more, hope more. He's inviting you to see differently, to shift the lens you've been looking through, to train your mind, your heart, your spirit, to recognize him not only in the miracles, but in the moments, not only in the breakthroughs, but in the breaking, not only in the blessings, but in the battles. Because when you train your mind to see God in everything, your entire life begins to change. There is a version of you that used to look at life through survival, through fear, through disappointment, through why me and how long, and God, where are you? But God is calling you into a deeper kind of vision, a vision that doesn't wait for proof to trust him. A vision that doesn't collapse when life gets loud. A vision that sees his fingerprints in the quiet places. When you train your mind to see God in everything, storms become classrooms, delays become protection, rejection becomes redirection, closed doors become answered prayers, hard seasons become holy ground, and suddenly life doesn't feel random anymore. It feels purposeful, intentional, designed, led. This is the kind of mindset that shifts your entire life. Not because your circumstances change overnight, but because you change. The way you interpret the moment changes. The way you carry challenges changes. The way you respond to pressure changes. You stop panicking and start discerning. You stop complaining and start learning. You stop breaking down and start rising up. Family, when your mind learns how to see God's hand in everything, your heart learns how to trust him through anything. Life will never look the same because you will never look at it the same. Family, shifting your mindset from survival to spiritual vision is one of the greatest transformations God will ever lead you through because it changes the lens through which you experience your entire life. Survival mode teaches you to react. Spiritual vision teaches you to perceive. Survival mode tells you to run, hide, protect, fear, doubt, and brace for what might go wrong. Spiritual vision teaches you to pause, discern, listen, trust, and look for God even in the places that don't make sense yet. Survival mode is loud, frantic, exhausting. Spiritual vision is quiet, steady, grounded, rooted. And God is calling you out of the frantic noise into the holy clarity of seeing him in everything. For so long, many of us learned how to survive before we ever learned how to see. We learned how to keep going when we were hurting, how to keep smiling when we were breaking, how to keep showing up when we had nothing left. We learned how to push through life instead of experiencing it. We learned how to brace for disappointment because we were familiar with pain. Survival mode becomes a reflex. It becomes a way of thinking, a way of breathing, a way of interpreting the world. It causes you to expect trouble even in peaceful seasons, expect betrayal even from kind people, expect lack even when God is trying to show you abundance. Survival mindset becomes a prison when God is trying to lead you into promise. But there comes a moment when God gently begins whispering to your spirit, you don't have to live like this anymore. You don't have to always be ready for the worst. You don't have to carry fear as if it is wisdom. You don't have to view life through the lens of what hurt you. Let me teach you how to see again. And that's where the shift begins, not in your circumstances, but in your mind, not in the world around you, but in the world within you. God begins reshaping your thinking so that your perspective matches his presence. Shifting from survival to spiritual vision means learning to look beyond the surface of situations. It means asking God, what are you doing here? What are you teaching me? What are you protecting me from? What are you preparing me for? Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? It is training your mind to see God's fingerprints where you used to see only frustration. It is opening your spiritual eyes so clearly that you can sense God's direction even when you cannot trace his plan. It is learning to notice the divine in the daily, his whispers in your thoughts, his nudges in your decisions, his comfort in your storms, his protection in your delays. Survival mindset will make you respond emotionally to everything. Spiritual vision will teach you to respond intentionally. Survival mindset will make you believe every challenge is an attack. Spiritual vision will show you that some challenges are instructions. Survival mindset will make you believe God has forgotten you. Spiritual vision will remind you He is preparing you. The shift happens when you realize God is not only in the miracles, He is in the moments you didn't understand. He is in the silence, in the waiting, in the detours, in the closed doors, in the unexpected changes, in the interruptions that frustrated you. When you begin to see God in those places, your life begins to align on a level you've never experienced. Shifting from survival to spiritual vision requires healing. You cannot see clearly through a wounded lens. If your past is still interpreting your present, your vision will always be distorted. If trauma is still shaping your perspective, you will misread situations God meant to bless you with. If fear is still directing your choices, you will avoid the very things God is calling you to walk toward. God cannot elevate the version of you that still sees through the eyes of danger. He needs you to see through the eyes of destiny. Though He starts healing the parts of you that survival mode hardened, He softens your heart where it grew guarded. He restores your hope where it grew dim. He strengthens your faith where it grew weary. He rewires your thinking where fear built patterns. He replaces your instinct to panic with an instinct to pray. He replaces your instinct to run with an instinct to seek. He replaces your instinct to doubt with an instinct to expect. This is what spiritual vision looks like. Your mind no longer reacting from your past, but responding from your spirit. Survival taught you to look for danger. Spiritual vision teaches you to look for God. Survival taught you to protect yourself. Spiritual vision teaches you to trust that God is protecting you. Survival taught you to brace for impact. Spiritual vision teaches you to prepare for purpose. Survival taught you to fear what you can't control. Spiritual vision teaches you to trust what God is orchestrating. When this shift begins, life starts to feel different, not because anything changed externally, but because everything changed internally. The same situation that would have discouraged you now develops you. The same rejection that would have crushed you now redirects you. The same storm that once overwhelmed you now strengthens your discernment. The same delay you once complained about now becomes confirmation that God is blocking what wasn't meant for you. Spiritual vision lets you see what survival mindset would have blinded you to. The kindness hidden in the correction, the protection hidden in the delay, the growth hidden in the discomfort, the elevation hidden in the stretching, the lesson hidden in the loss. You begin to realize that God wastes nothing. Not your tears, not your failures, not your heartbreaks, not your frustrations. Everything becomes a tool in His hands to shape you into the woman He called you to be. Shifting from survival to spiritual vision also changes the way you interpret people. Instead of assuming everyone who challenges you is against you, you begin to discern who is sharpening you. Instead of taking everything personally, you begin to recognize what is projection. Instead of clinging to relationships out of fear, you begin releasing connections that are misaligned. Instead of trying to control how people treat you, you begin recognizing who God is removing for your protection. Your relationships start shifting because your perspective has shifted. Your boundaries become stronger because your discernment becomes sharper. You stop needing constant reassurance because you start sensing God's nearness. You stop replaying scenarios in your head because you start trusting God's plan for your life. This is the fruit of spiritual vision, a mind anchored in God rather than anchored in fear. Shifting your mindset from survival to spiritual vision also shapes your identity. Survival makes you believe you must earn safety, earn love, earn stability. Spiritual vision teaches you that you already belong. You are already loved. You are already protected. You are already chosen. Survival mindset tells you to keep running. Spiritual vision tells you to be still and know. Survival mindset says, this is too much. Spiritual vision says, this is preparation. Survival mindset says, I don't know if I can do this. Spiritual vision says, God is with me. This shift doesn't happen all at once. It happens moment by moment, thought by thought, situation by situation. It happens each time you choose trust over fear. Each time you choose prayer over panic. Each time you choose patience over pressure. Each time you choose faith over frustration. Each time you say, God, help me see this the way you see it. When you reach this level of spiritual vision, nothing in your life looks the same. Not because life became easier, but because your eyes became wiser. You start seeing God where you once saw chaos. You start seeing purpose where you once saw pain. You start seeing growth where you once saw grief. You start seeing direction where you once saw delay. And suddenly, everything in your life becomes an encounter with God. Family survival mode may have kept you alive, but spiritual vision will teach you how to live. Survival taught you how to endure life. Spiritual vision teaches you how to interpret it. And once your mind learns to see God in everything, your life will never, ever look the same. Family, recognizing God's presence in delays, storms, and unexpected moments requires a completely different posture, one that doesn't rely on what your eyes can see, but on what your spirit can sense. Because God is not just in the moments that feel good. He's in the moments that stretch you, confuse you, delay you, and humble you. He's in the places you didn't want to be, in the timing you didn't expect, and in the situations you prayed would pass quickly. When you train your mind to see God in those places, everything in your life becomes redefined, because you begin to understand that He is not only present in the blessing, He is present in the building. Delays are one of the hardest places to recognize God, because we live in a world that worships speed. We want results fast, answers fast, breakthroughs fast, confirmation fast. But God often works in slow seasons because there are some things that cannot be rushed. His timing isn't punishment. It is protection, preparation, preservation. The delay you are resenting might be the very thing that's saving you from stepping into something too soon. But survival mode makes you think a delay is a denial. Spiritual vision teaches you that a delay is a divine shield. When you start seeing God in delays, you stop panicking at the pace of your life. You stop comparing your timeline to others. You stop assuming God is punishing you. You stop rushing into opportunities He hasn't equipped you for yet. Instead, you begin to say, God, if you slowed this down, you must be protecting something in me or around me. You must be forming something in my character. You must be safeguarding me from something I cannot yet see. And suddenly, the waiting room becomes the classroom. The slow season becomes the shaping season. The delay becomes the development. Storms, on the other hand, are where God reveals what He's been building inside you. Storms expose foundations. Storms reveal faith. Storms shake off what was weak and strengthen what was real. Recognizing God in a storm is not easy, because storms are loud. They shake your plans, your emotions, your expectations, your stability. But if you look closely, there is always a thread of God's hand woven inside the chaos. The storm that felt like it came to break you was actually the storm that came to wake you. The storm that felt like loss was actually the storm that exposed who was never meant to stay. The storm that felt like a setback was actually the storm that pushed you into a version of yourself you never knew existed. When you train your mind to see God in storms, the storm no longer terrifies you the way it once did. You stop feeling abandoned and start feeling accompanied. You stop seeing the storm as an attack and start seeing it as an assignment. You begin to say, this wind is strong, but so is the God who anchors me. You begin to say, if God allowed this storm, then something in me is about to be strengthened. Something in me is about to elevate. Something in me is about to grow. And that realization alone shifts the entire atmosphere of your heart. Then there are the unexpected moments, the interruptions, the disappointments, the detours, the sudden changes that catch you completely off guard. These are the places where God's presence is often the easiest to miss because you weren't prepared for them. You didn't plan for them. You didn't pray for them. But the truth is, some of God's biggest moves show up in ways that don't look divine at first. The unexpected is often God's doorway to a direction you never would have chosen on your own. Recognizing God in the unexpected means you stop assuming that everything unfamiliar is a threat. Sometimes it's an invitation. Sometimes the unexpected conversation reveals the truth you needed. Sometimes the unexpected ending releases you from a season that was over. Sometimes the unexpected opportunity pushes you into a purpose you were avoiding. Sometimes the unexpected challenge reveals strength you didn't know you had. Sometimes the unexpected silence from God forces you to develop spiritual ears instead of emotional dependency. The unexpected moments often reveal God's fingerprints most clearly because they remind you that you are not the one writing the story, He is. And when you see Him in those unexpected twists, you stop fearing your future because you start trusting His authorship. Recognizing God in delays, storms, and unexpected moments requires a trained mind, not a natural mind. A natural mind says, this is unfair. A trained mind says, this is preparing me. A natural mind says, I'm losing time. A trained mind says, I'm gaining development. A trained mind says, why is this happening? A trained mind says, show me what you're doing, God. A natural mind says, this makes no sense. A trained mind says, your ways are higher, and I trust you. This level of recognition comes when your identity is anchored in God instead of your circumstances, when your peace comes from His presence instead of your progress, when your discernment becomes sharper than your emotions, when you learn to pause, breathe, and look again, not with physical eyes, but with spiritual understanding. God shows up in delays to test your patience. He shows up in storms to test your faith. He shows up in the unexpected to test your surrender. And every time you recognize Him, truly recognize Him, your spirit rises to a new level of maturity. Suddenly, you stop needing God to prove Himself every time life gets difficult. Suddenly, you stop reacting emotionally and start responding spiritually. Suddenly, you stop seeing obstacles and start seeing opportunity. Suddenly, you stop doubting and start discerning. Recognizing God in delays gives you endurance. Recognizing God in storms gives you resilience. Recognizing God in unexpected moments gives you flexibility. Together, they build a woman who cannot be easily shaken, a woman who doesn't fall apart every time something doesn't go her way, a woman who doesn't get bitter when plans change, a woman who doesn't grow discouraged when things take longer than expected. A woman who is stable, grounded, rooted, because she knows God is present in everything. And when you begin to see Him in everything, your whole life transforms. You interpret setbacks differently. You interpret slow seasons differently. You interpret relationships differently. You interpret boundaries differently. You interpret opportunities differently. Life becomes less about what is happening and more about what God is revealing. Family, when your eyes become trained to recognize God in delays, storms, and unexpected moments, you carry a peace that nothing can shake, a confidence that nothing can steal, a wisdom that nothing can distort, because you finally understand that God is not only present in the moments that make sense, He is God over the moments that confuse you, delay you, surprise you, and stretch you. And the moment you learn to see Him there, life will never look the same. Family, learning to respond with discernment instead of panic is one of the most powerful shifts God will ever produce in your life because it transforms the way you handle pressure, pain, uncertainty, and unexpected situations. Panic is a natural reaction. Discernment is a spiritual response. Panic comes from the mind. Discernment comes from the spirit. Panic reacts to what it sees. Discernment responds to what it knows. Panic is loud, chaotic, impulsive. Discernment is quiet, steady, wise. And when God trains your mind to see him in everything, he begins teaching you how to respond in a way that honors your faith instead of feeding your fear. Most of us were raised in environments that taught us how to panic before we ever learned how to discern. We learned how to worry before we learned how to trust. We learned how to assume the worst before we learned how to expect God's best. We learned how to brace for danger before we learned how to stand